I've got mixed feelings. In one way, I cannot wait. I'm counting down the days. This is a lifelong dream. I've always wanted to have a go at scaling Mount Everest. For me, it is the whole journey. All of this, all the training, everything is part of the excitement. Obviously, I'd love to perhaps stand on that summit, but I'm a realist as well. And I think if you go in with reasonable expectations, I'm hopeful. I'm definitely a confident person, but I think I'm a realist. But I think it's a mixture of excitement, and I'd be lying if I didn't say it's slightly nerve-wracking. It's a dangerous peak. We know that. But I think part of the reason I want to do this is to try and perhaps change its reputation a little bit. A lot of people, when they speak or talk about Mount Everest, it's always the deaths and it's almost spoken in a negative breath, whereas I kind of want this to be a celebration. Even if I don't reach the summit, I kind of want it to be a celebration this time.
It's quite interesting you say that. It was a client of mine once asked me for some good reading on Mount Everest, about
because most of the books on Mount Everest are the disasters.
And then I died, or then he died, or I nearly died, or I fell in a crevasse, rather than the celebration of the peak.
And it's interesting though, because we've spent quite a bit of time in the peaks now, in the mountains, both here in the UK and overseas. And you mentioned a lot of mountaineers who have met their end in the mountains.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, mountains are a place you have to respect, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And you get someone like Everest, and not only are you dealing with the objective danger of mountaineering, which is avalanches or rockfall or crevasses, but of course on Everest, 8,845 metres, 8,848 metres even above sea level, you're dealing with a death zone. We're not supposed to be there, so we're pushing our bodies as far as you can physiologically, and our bodies undergo these subtle changes. So we've not only got to deal with the heat and the cold and the complexities of the climbing, but then we've got to deal with what our bodies are doing and how they're responding to the high altitude. So throw that in the mix, and it is a really dangerous place to be. It's a dangerous environment, but what I like to think that we're doing, that we've done thus far, we've approached it in a sensible manner, whereby when we get there, we're going to be as prepared as we can, realistically as prepared as we can be. It's been fun. I mean, we at the top of Island Peak, what was that, 2 weeks ago? What was the view like?
Oh, it's one of the most beautiful views, honestly, I think I've ever seen.
It's incredible.
If we can get to a place on the mountain with better views than that, I'll be happy. I mean,
well, unfortunately, we have set the bar quite high, because you end up in the Western Coombe. It's this hidden valley that you can't see. We will trek to base camp, and we'll be trekking up the last day to base camp, and you will be saying to me, well, where is it? I can't see the entrance to the Coombe. It's so well hidden until summit day, where it opens out and the majestic view is second to none. Until that day, our view on Island Peak is tip top, really.
And I'm curious, Kenton, because you say the heady heights of Everest is a place we're not really meant to be in, yet you've been 12 times. If we can get up there this year, it will be your 13th summit.
Touch wood.
Unlucky for some.
Superstition.
Not for us. But what is it that keeps you returning? Because some people may think, well, you've done it. You've been up there. You've seen the view. I'm assuming part of it is every time you go, it's going to be slightly different because of the weather, because of the people you're with, because of the journey, the experience. Do you get something slightly different each time?
I do. With Everest, it's an amalgamation of lots of things. I get to work with my Sherpa friends, and they mean a lot to me. And I could work on other mountains with them, and I do work on other mountains with them, but I'm very fond of my very dear Sherpa friends, so I get to work with them. I think she's a beautiful mountain. I love the fact that she's made out of limestone that started its life in the seabed, and now it's the top of the world. I just can't get my head around that. The view is, like many of the 8,000 metre peaks, the view is to die for. And then I so enjoy working with the likes of you and some of
Victoria, who's not here now,
and some of my other clients, and working the expedition to the nuances of the individual. Well, that's why I work, and it's just the three of us going. Most people are in big teams, but there's just the three of us.
And it must be interesting for you to see the different kind of the dynamic between Victoria and myself, for example. Victoria Pendleton, the Olympic cyclist. she's had a professional career, teams of people around her, training her down to the last.
Looking after her nutrition. We've talked about this, or VP and I have talked about this. She's come from quite a controlled environment, whereas mountaineering, trekking, being in the outdoors, adventure, it's a lot more fluid. I mean, you and I know that, as well as anybody else. And there isn't the levels of control that you have to the same degree that you have with, say,
is that an extra challenge for you then, having someone like Victoria along?
It is an extra challenge. At the same time, her drive, her determination is there, because we do these things for a reason. We do these things because it's fun. We enjoy it. We enjoy being outside. We enjoy adventure. We enjoy finding out what's around the next corner. And part of my job, yes, I've got to keep people safe. But it's providing that level of enjoyment. And if we don't enjoy it, then we need to think why we're doing it in the first place.
That's what you were just saying. That's why we're here today. We're both Get Outside champions. There's all sorts of inspiring people.
Oh my God, have you chatted to many of the guys?
It's amazing. I mean, it's incredible what they do. And I'm more acutely aware that Everest, for many people, actually might put them off going to the great outdoors. For many people, their Everest is Scafell Pike or Helvellyn or somewhere in the Brecon Beacons. That I think is the beauty of this country, is that we have so much to play with. It doesn't have to. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. We're incredibly lucky, aren't we, that we get to do that?
I think people should take Everest as a metaphor, as opposed to anything else. It is your Everest, whatever it is. And you're right. The beautiful thing about this country, it's such varied landscape, from the south coast, where you get palm trees, right up to the sort of northern tip of Scotland. The beaches we have, the mountain landscape, I think, is beyond compare. Yes, the Himalayas are amazing, but they're not the cheapest place in the world to go. It's not accessible to everybody, but the outside here is. You just step outside your front door.
And the other thing is that people like yourself and me, we may get to do these fantastic opportunities in faraway places, but it all began here. I mean, for me, I like to think that the UK has been my training ground for Everest for the last 20 years. Right, and every peak I've climbed, every mountain, every ben up in Scotland, every coastal path. My very first mountain would have been a small peak in the Lake District, and I wouldn't necessarily know.
Mine was in, I remember it vividly, mine was in North Wales. There's a mountain called Moel Shabod, which is, I couldn't even tell you how big it is. It's little more than a molehill, and it is ingrained on my mind. It rained all the way to the top, all the way back down, and I loved every second of it.
See, I remember distinctly a school trip to Pennyfan when I was young. Again, rain. I mean, it's a slight, I think there's a consistency in this country, isn't there? Often rainy, but as we always say, you just embrace it, don't you? There's no such thing as bad weather.
And look at the adventurers and the mountaineers that this country has produced. And I think a lot of it comes because we are great at embracing what we have. That's what it's all about. It's about inspiring, motivating, invigorating, getting the next generation of game changers, global game changers, into the outdoors to embrace adventure and to come back more rounded individuals. You can't get that just from the classroom. You can't get that from just putting your nose into a book or watching television. Yes, we're lucky with things like Blue Planet and Life on Earth. They are amazing, but go and experience it. I mean, and that's getting outside. Pretty simple, I think.
Yeah.